Tonight we've got a collection of relaxing bedtime stories with our friends in Sleepy Forest. Let's get cozy and drift off together. Before we do, could you please tap subscribe? By doing this small thing, you'll let YouTube know you love what we do, which will help us grow. Let's get ourselves cozy, snuggle down, and I'll begin. This is Koko's Walk in the Rain by Gillian Rogerson. Deep in the heart of a faraway forest stood a cozy cabin. Inside the cabin lived a family of koalas. The youngest koala was called Koko. It was a bright, sunny afternoon in Sleepy Forest. Little Koko was staring out of the window of his home, and even though it was a beautiful day, he couldn't help letting out a small sigh. He loved sunny days and playing outside, but he didn't want it to be sunny all the time, because he liked being out in the rain sometimes too. Koko loved splashing in puddles. His mum had bought him a new pair of Wellington boots. They were bright red and had yellow spots on them. Koko couldn't wait to wear them outside. He'd been waiting for a rainy day for ages and ages. Well, at least 2 days anyway. It would have to rain sometime, wouldn't it? Koko sighed again, and then all of a sudden he had a marvellous idea. Perhaps he could wear his boots in the sunshine. Boots were good for all types of weather, weren't they? He had already tried his new boots on several times, and they were very comfy, and they made him feel very special too. Feeling much happier, Koko turned away from the window and went in search of his grandma to ask if he could wear his boots in the sunshine. He heard her singing in the kitchen. Listening to her lovely voice made Koko smile, and he hummed along to the song. Koko went into the kitchen and found his grandma dancing with his grandpa. They were always dancing together, and whenever Koko saw them dancing, his little heart filled with happiness. He didn't want to disturb them, so he stood by the door and watched them, smiling all the time. His grandparents saw Koko and waltzed over to him. They scooped him into their arms and danced with him around the kitchen. Koko chuckled and joined in with the singing. After a few dance-filled minutes, his grandparents came to a stop and gently stood Koko on the floor. They asked what his plans were for the day. Koko said, "I want to wear my new boots and go outside in them. I know it's not raining, but I really want to wear them. Can I, Grandma? Please?" "Of course you can," his grandma replied. "But why don't you wait for the rain to start? Wearing your new boots in the rain will be so much more fun." Koko pointed to the window and said, "It's never going to rain. Not today, anyway. Look how sunny it is." Grandma held up her paw. "Ah, but it is going to rain today. I listened to the weather forecast earlier, and the weather bear said it was going to rain today and it would go on for hours. There could be thunder and lightning too. Won't that be exciting?" Koko looked at the clock on the kitchen wall. He had learned to tell the time recently and was getting very good at it. He said, "Grandma, it's 1 o'clock now. What time will the rain start?" His grandma smiled fondly at Koko and said the rain would start when it was ready. Seeing the glum look on Koko's face, She reached out for his paw and took it in hers. She said, "Let's go outside and examine the sky. We'll search for clouds on the horizon. I'll use my magical powers too." Koko's eyes widened. "You have magical powers? I didn't know that. Did you know that, Grandpa?" His grandpa smiled and said everything about Grandma was magical to him. He took Koko's other paw, and the three of them went outside. They stood on the porch and looked at the sky. It was a beautiful blue, and there wasn't a single cloud in sight. Koko's grandma closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She slowly let it out and opened her eyes. She smiled down at Koko and said, "It is definitely going to rain. I can feel it in my fur, and I can smell it in the air. I think it will start in about 10 minutes. It will be light to begin with, but then there will be a downpour with some thunder and lightning." Koko noticed the confident look on Grandma's face, so he said, "I'll put my boots on and my raincoat. Is it okay if I play out in the garden in the rain?" Grandma smiled at Koko and her husband and asked if they wanted to go on a rainy walk through the forest together. They both said yes, and the three koalas went into the cabin to get ready for their walk. Koko pulled his new boots over his feet and put his raincoat on. His coat had a hood, so he pulled it over his head. He stood by the front door and waited patiently for his grandparents to get ready. It didn't take them long, and they soon had their raincoats and boots on too. Grandma remembered to take her rainbow umbrella with her. She said she loved feeling the rain on her face, but if it got too heavy, she would put her umbrella up. The three koalas left the family home and headed along the forest path. They'd only been walking for a short while when Koko pointed excitedly at the sky and said, "Look, there are some clouds up there. Are those rain clouds? I hope they are." Grandpa said, "They are rain clouds. You can see the silver-grey colour of them, and there are more appearing behind them." Koko grinned, and his toes wriggled happily inside his new boots. The three koalas walked on. More silver-grey clouds appeared and gathered together in the sky. They glided across the sky and moved in front of the sun. The forest turned a little darker. Koko skipped happily at his grandparents' side. He couldn't wait for the rain to begin. He didn't have to wait long. A single drop of rain fell from the clouds and landed on the tip of Koko's nose. He touched his nose to make sure he hadn't imagined the rain falling. As he did so, another raindrop landed on his paw. Koko cheered and said, "Yay, it's raining." He did a happy jig in his new boots. The family stopped walking and turned their faces towards the grey sky. More raindrops fell and landed softly on the koalas' upturned faces. Koko stuck his tongue out and caught a few drops on his tongue. They were warm. His grandparents chuckled when they saw what he was doing, and then they stuck their tongues out too and caught the rain. The rain dripped through the leaves of the trees. Drip, drop. It fell on the blackberry bushes. Drip, drop. It landed on the soft grass. Drip, drop. Each drip and drop sounded a gentle drumbeat. Koko held out his arms and listened to the sound of the rain falling onto the material of his raincoat. Drip, drop. He stuck his foot out and noticed how the raindrops sounded different when they fell onto his boot. Drip, drop. The rain grew heavier and created a soothing melody that echoed through Sleepy Forest. Some of the animals who had been playing outside looked at the grey clouds and hurried into their homes. Other animals peeped out of their windows, saw the rain, and came outside to play in it. The rain fell onto the forest path and made little puddles. A leaf floated free from a tree and drifted down into a puddle. A gentle breeze blew the leaf back and forth across the watery surface. Koko thought the leaf looked like a little boat sailing on a tiny ocean. Grandpa picked Koko up and took him over to a tree. Some of the larger leaves were shaped like bowls and filled with water. The little robin flew towards one of the water-filled leaves and sat next to it. She said hello to the koalas and took a refreshing drink from the leaf. Once she'd had enough, she said goodbye and flew away. More rain fell, and more puddles appeared on the ground. Grandpa grinned at Koko and said, "Shall we have a splash in the puddles?" "Yes, please," Koko replied with a grin that matched his grandpa's. His grandpa put Koko on the ground. There was a line of puddles in front of them, just waiting to be jumped into. Koko's grandparents told Koko to go first. He looked down at his boots. They were so very new and clean, but they had been made to jump into puddles. Koko bent his knees, and then he jumped into the nearest puddle. There was a huge, satisfying splash. The muddy water washed over his red and yellow boots. Koko jumped into the next puddle, and the next, and the next. Splash, splash, splash. It was so very satisfying and enormous fun. His grandparents jumped into the puddles too, and they laughed and laughed as the water went everywhere. Koko held his grandparents' paws, and they splashed in the puddles together, over and over again, until they finally stopped and decided they'd had enough splashing for the moment. The rain still fell, pitter-patter, over Sleepy Forest. Grandpa said the rain sounded like a drum, and it made him want to dance. Grandma smiled fondly at her husband and said he couldn't dance in the rain. "Why ever not?" he said cheerfully. "And you two can dance with me. Join in when you're ready." Grandma opened up the rainbow umbrella and asked Koko if he wanted to stand under it with her. He said he didn't want to just yet because he liked the sound of the rain landing on his hood. Koko's grandpa held his arms out wide and began to sing a joyful song. Koko swayed from side to side, and his grandma did too. Koko's grandpa twirled around on the spot and kicked his legs to the side. He jumped into a puddle and twirled around again. He kicked his legs out and sent drops of rain flying off in all directions. Still singing, he leapt out of the puddle and danced around a tree. He reached out for a huge rain-filled leaf and tipped it up. The rain fell like a shower over the singing, smiling koala, and it made Koko and his grandma laugh. Grandpa hopped and bopped through the falling rain and over to Koko. He picked him up and danced around the trees and bushes with him. Koko's grandma shook her head good-naturedly at the dancing duo. She moved towards them and joined in with the dancing. In and out of puddles they danced, shimmying and swaying. Around trees they boogied, and along the forest path they grooved. The koalas laughed so much that they had to stop dancing. They laughed some more until all of their laughter was out. More silvery grey clouds appeared in the sky and clustered together. The sky darkened some more, and the rain fell heavier. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Grandma moved the umbrella so that all 3 koalas could shelter beneath it. The rain pitter-pattered on the material of the umbrella, and Koko felt very cosy beneath it. The family continued travelling through the rainy forest and came to an old wooden bridge. They walked onto the bridge and stopped in the middle of it. The koalas looked over the side at the swirling river below. The falling raindrops landed on the water and created tiny ripples that circled outwards and joined other ripples. Fallen leaves and twigs sailed down the river. The rain continued falling. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. It didn't show any signs of slowing down. Grandma looked at the sky and said the rain was going to get heavier, and she could sense that thunder and lightning were on the way too. She suggested they head into Sleepy Forest Village and go to the cafe there. The koalas had been to the cafe many times and knew how delicious the hot chocolate drinks were, especially when they were topped with freshly whipped cream and soft marshmallows. The family hastened across the rest of the bridge and towards the village. In very little time they reached the Sleepy Forest Cafe. Grandma stopped outside the door and gave her umbrella a good shake. Raindrops flew from it and onto the forest path. Grandpa opened the door of the cafe and told Koko to find a good place to sit. He asked Koko what he would like to drink. "Hot chocolate, please," the little koala replied. "With whipped cream and marshmallows?" his grandpa asked. Koko nodded eagerly. His grandma said she would have the same thing too. Grandpa went to the counter to order the drinks, and Grandma and Koko found a cozy corner table by the window. They settled down onto the soft seats. Koko and his grandma watched the raindrops running down the outside of the glass and looked at the puddles growing bigger on the ground. Grandpa brought 3 mugs of hot chocolate over and handed them out. The koalas sipped their delicious drinks and watched the rain falling over Sleepy Forest. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Koko said he felt all warm and cozy inside the cafe. His grandparents said they did too. The sky grew even darker. Table lamps were switched on and cast cozy glows around the cafe. Grandma said the thunder was going to start. 2 seconds later, a rumble of thunder echoed through the sky. Koko gazed at his grandma in wonder. She really did have magical powers. The thunder rumbled again, and it was followed by a flash of lightning that zipped across the sky. Koko cupped his hands around his mug and took a small sip of the velvety hot chocolate. Outside, the rain pitter-pattered. The thunder rumbled. The lightning lit up the sky. Koko felt even more cozy and warm. The koalas continued watching the rainstorm whilst drinking their hot chocolate. Other customers in the cafe were looking out of the windows too, mesmerized by the soothing sights and sounds of the rain. The koalas continued to drink their hot chocolates. The rain pitter-pattered on the trees and the ground. The thunder rumbled some more. More flashes of light zigzagged across the sky. The koalas finished their drinks, and at the same time, the thunder and lightning stopped, and some of the grey clouds moved across the sky. The rain became lighter and lighter until it was no more than a drizzle. Sunbeams shone down through gaps in the clouds and moved smoothly over the freshly washed ground. Raindrops glistened like diamonds on the grass and leaves. A few birds began to sing. Koko asked his grandma if the rain had stopped. "Not quite," she replied. "And if my feelings are correct, there should be something beautiful appearing in the sky soon. Let's go outside and look for it." Grandpa took the mugs over to the counter and said thank you to the kangaroo who had made the lovely drinks. The koalas left the cafe and walked along the forest path a little. The rain was gently falling, and the sun peeped through gaps in the clouds. Grandma turned her face skyward and searched the sky. "There it is." She pointed towards some trees. "Koko, can you see it? The rainbow?" Koko turned his head and looked in the same direction that Grandma was looking in. A magnificent rainbow arched across the sky. It glistened and glimmered, and Koko wasn't sure if it was a normal rainbow or a magical one from another world. It was so beautiful and enchanting that he couldn't stop looking at it. The colours were bright and twinkled like stars in the sky. The koalas held pause and silently watched the rainbow. The rain slowly stopped falling. The grey clouds drifted away. The sun shone down brightly over Sleepy Forest. Koko looked up at his grandma and said, "I'm glad we came out for a rainy walk. I've had a lovely time." His grandma said she'd had a lovely time too, and perhaps it was time to head home. His parents would be back soon, and they would wonder where everyone had gone. "Will there be any more rain today, Grandma?" Koko asked. She smiled at her little grandson and said, "Yes, there will be more rain this evening. No thunder and lightning this time, though. Just rain. And it will happen when you're tucked up, snug and cozy in your bed." Koko smiled at the soothing thought of listening to the rain as he fell asleep. The koalas walked along the forest path and jumped into every possible puddle they could find. Grandpa had another dance along the way, and Grandma and Koko joined him. The sun was warm on their backs, insects and the koalas took their raincoats off and carried them. Soon their little cosy cabin came into view. Koko's parents were sitting on the swinging bench on the porch. They waved to Koko and his grandparents. Koko ran over to his parents and bounded up the steps. Before he could say a word about his rainy walk, his mother said, "You've been on a long walk in the forest, and you've jumped into many puddles." "Wow, how did you know that?" Koko asked. "Have you got magical powers like Grandma?" His mother pointed to his boots and replied, "No, but I don't need magical powers to see how muddy your boots are. I'm so glad you got to wear them today. Have you had a fun time? Did you see the lightning and the rainbow?" Koko said he had. He sat in between his parents and told them all about his wonderful walk in the rain with his grandparents. Later that night, Koko snuggled down in his bed. His grandma sat at his side and told him a story about an albatross who flew passengers all over the world. When she'd finished the story, she held up her paw to her ear, smiled at Koko, and said, "Can I hear the rain?" Koko listened. He smiled. He could hear the rain falling outside. Pitter-patter. There was a soothing sound. Pitter-patter. So very relaxing. Pitter-patter. Koko yawned and closed his eyes. Pitter-patter. The rain was a soft lullaby, a gentle melody of soothing sounds. Pitter-patter. Koko drifted into a deep, deep sleep. The rain continued to fall over Sleepy Forest. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter. This is The Wise Elephant by Gillian Rogerson. At the far end of Sleepy Forest, there lived a wise elephant. Whenever a creature needed help, they would seek advice from her, because the wise elephant always knew what to tell them. Such was the case on a warm summer's day, when a robin flew over to the far side of the forest to ask for help. Being very wise, the elephant knew something was troubling the little bird as soon as he alighted on the branch of a pine tree. The robin said, "I love singing, but it's time I gave it up. I keep trying to stop, but then, before I know it, I'm breaking into a song at the top of my voice. Please tell me how to stop doing that." The elephant gave the robin a long look before saying, "I've heard your songs. They're wonderful. Why would you want to stop?" The robin let out a sigh and said, "I have to. I think the other birds laugh at me when I sing. They have beautiful voices, but I don't. I sound terrible. That's why I should stop." "I'm quite sure that the other birds don't laugh at you," the elephant told the robin. "Come with me." The elephant set off walking. The robin flew a little way behind her. When they'd travelled a short distance through the forest, the elephant stopped walking and said, "Be still. Listen to the forest. What can you hear?" The robin settled on a log and answered, "I can hear bees buzzing." The elephant nodded. "What else? Really listen." The robin became very still and listened again. Many sounds drifted towards him. The gentle rustling of leaves as a soft wind blew through the trees. The snuffling of animals as they shuffled through the undergrowth. Crickets cheerfully chirping in the long grass. Water trickling over stones in a nearby stream. The robin smiled at the elephant and said, "It sounds like music coming from all around me. It makes me want to..." He stopped talking. "Sing?" the elephant finished for him. "My little feathered friend, if you feel like singing, then you must sing. Don't let your voice remain silent for a moment longer. The forest is waiting for your song." "Is it?" the robin asked. "It is," the wise elephant confirmed. "Go ahead." The robin proudly lifted his head and began to sing. He started off quietly, but when he saw the encouraging look on the elephant's face, his voice grew louder and more confident. When he fell silent, he looked at the elephant and asked, "How did I sound?" "Marvelous, simply marvelous. Never let anyone stop you singing, especially yourself. Never let your songs go unsung." "I won't, thank you." The robin tipped his head in goodbye before taking to the skies. He flew from tree to tree, singing in harmony with the melodies of the forest. The elephant waved her trunk in farewell before walking on her way. She hadn't got very far when a grey squirrel approached her. The elephant asked, "How may I help you?" "My head is full of worries," the squirrel said. "Lots and lots of worries. Shall I tell you what I'm worried about?" The elephant shook her head. "I don't need to know what your worries are, but I can help you to get rid of them. Close your eyes and listen to me." The squirrel closed her eyes. "Imagine your worries are leaves on a tree," the elephant advised. The squirrel opened one eye and said, "There are a lot of worry leaves on my tree." "That's okay. Close your eye. Now, picture each leaf falling gently from the tree as if it were autumn time. Can you picture that?" The squirrel nodded. "Good," the elephant said. "As each leaf falls, see a gentle breeze catching the leaf and taking it far, far away. So far away that it disappears from view. Can you do that? Take your time." The squirrel said she would try. The wise elephant waited patiently until a slow smile spread across the squirrel's face. "My worries have flown away," the squirrel said as she opened her eyes. "All of them. But what will I do if they come back?" "Make your worries as light as airborne leaves and let the wind take them away." The squirrel thanked the elephant before scampering away with a spring in her step. Once more the elephant set off walking. And once more she didn't get very far before she was approached by someone. This time it was a small green frog who sought her assistance. "What can I help you with?" the elephant asked. The frog jumped onto a log and said, "I have a big problem, a very big problem." "Okay, tell me about your big problem." The frog did so. He told the elephant that he didn't like swimming. All his friends and family loved swimming, but he didn't, not one little bit. He didn't even like getting his feet wet. He gave her a helpless look. "What am I to do? I can't stay at the pond with the other frogs. They keep asking me to go swimming with them, and I keep saying no. I think they're going to ask me to leave the pond and live somewhere else, but where will I go?" The elephant considered the matter. As she did so, she noticed how the frog kept jumping off the log and then back onto it. Back and forth he went, with a smile on his little green face. Very gently, she scooped the frog up using her trunk. She brought him close to her face so she could look into his eyes. She said, "What do you love doing?" With joy shining like sunbeams in his eyes, the frog answered, "Jumping and leaping and hopping. I just love it. It feels like I'm flying when I'm moving through the air like that. I would do it all day long if I could, but I daren't do it in front of anyone else in case they laugh at me." "Have you told the other frogs how much you love jumping and leaping?" The frog said he hadn't, because he was sure they wouldn't understand. To which the elephant replied that he wouldn't know that until he told them. The frog was silent for a while. Then he said, "Do you think I should tell them?" "You certainly should. And you should do it now. Who knows, maybe some of your friends might feel the same way." The frog tapped his chin thoughtfully. "I hadn't even considered that. You don't know how somebody feels until you ask them," the elephant said. The frog agreed and said he would return to the pond immediately and speak to the other frogs. He leapt from the elephant's trunk and set off into the forest, jumping and hopping so quickly that he really did look as if he were flying. The wise elephant smiled as she watched him go. As the day wore on, more creatures stopped the elephant and asked for her assistance with their problems. The elephant happily gave her wise guidance. Yet there was one animal who was too shy to ask for her help. A monkey had been following the elephant since early morning. He had hidden from sight as he'd listened carefully to the advice given out by the wise elephant. Alas, nothing she said was of use to the monkey in his situation. He wondered if anyone could help him. The sky began to grow dark, and the elephant decided it was time to head home. But there was one more creature who needed her help. She walked over to the tree where the monkey was hiding and said, "Hello there. Won't you come out and talk to me? Won't you tell me why you've been following me?" The monkey gathered as much courage as he could and stepped out from behind the tree. He said quietly, "I'm having trouble sleeping." "I see," the elephant said. "Tell me more." The monkey began to feel a bit braver as he spoke about his sleepless nights and how he worried all day long about not being able to sleep, which only made his problem worse. He finished by saying, "I don't think I'll have a good night's sleep ever again." "You will," the elephant confidently told him. "I will help you to sleep soundly tonight. All you need is a routine. Follow me." The monkey wasn't convinced he would sleep soundly that night or any night, but he followed the wise elephant anyway. The elephant stopped in front of a pride of lions who were lounging on the grass. She called out to them, "Hello, would you mind if my little monkey friend joined in with your evening exercises?" "We don't mind at all," a large lion answered. "We were just about to begin." The lion beckoned the monkey closer. With unsure steps, the monkey went over to the lions. He wasn't sure how exercising would help him sleep, but he was willing to give it a go. The lions stood up and began to slowly and carefully stretch their legs this way and that way. The monkey copied them. Then they gently rolled their necks from side to side. More stretching followed, until every part of the monkey's body felt loose and relaxed. His favorite stretch was standing on his toes and reaching so high that he felt he could touch the sky. The lions finished their routine by giving each other a hug. The monkey wasn't sure about doing that until one of the smaller lions told him everyone needs a hug. Before the monkey knew what was going on, he was hugged gently by one lion after another. A warm feeling flowed over him, and he agreed that everyone did indeed need a hug. The monkey thanked the lions, before returning to the elephant, who was waiting a short distance away. He told her, "I enjoyed that, but I don't see how it's going to help me get to sleep." "It will. Let's keep walking. There's something else I'd like you to try." They soon came to a group of happy hippos who were wallowing in the river. The elephant called over to them. "Good evening. Would you mind if my friend joined you?" "Of course not," the nearest hippo answered with a toothy grin. "The water is lovely and warm tonight." He shuffled along to make room for the monkey. The monkey wasn't sure about getting in the water, and he hesitated by the elephant's side. But then he saw how relaxed and content the hippos looked. Was that because of the warm water? Curiosity got the better of him, and the monkey moved towards the river. He carefully lowered himself into the water little by little. The warm water rolled over his body, sending warmth all the way through him. The hippos sent friendly smiles his way, but they didn't say anything. There was a comfortable silence, which made the monkey relax even more. He copied the hippos as they gazed at the darkening sky. The stars were twinkling into view. The monkey thought the stars looked especially beautiful tonight, and the moon appeared bigger. He felt peaceful, warm, and relaxed. After bathing for a little while longer, the hippos climbed out of the water and said good night to the monkey and the elephant. The monkey let out a little yawn as he too climbed out of the river. He told the elephant, "I'm feeling a little tired, but I don't know if I'm tired enough to sleep yet." "That's okay," the elephant replied. "There is one last thing I'd like you to try. I've been saving the best for last. Come with me." They hadn't been walking for long when the elephant stopped at a tree. The monkey recognized it as the tree he'd been sleeping in, or trying to sleep in. Before he could tell the elephant that, the elephant raised her trunk to the lowest branch and said, "Make yourself comfy on that branch. A friend of mine is nearby. I'm going to ask him to call on you." With that, the elephant turned around and walked away. The monkey was confused, but he got onto the branch anyway. He looked up through the leaves above and caught glimpses of the stars and moon. Before he made himself comfy, he stretched his arms and fingers as far up as they would go, just like the lions had taught him. It did feel good to do that. There was a slight noise below him, and the monkey peeped over the branch to see the elephant had returned, and she had someone with her. The elephant said to the monkey, "This is an old friend of mine. He's a mountain gorilla, and he has travelled all over Sleepy Forest and to the lands beyond. He has many tales to tell about his great adventures, and he has countless stories he has picked up along the way. He's going to tell you one of his stories tonight to help you fall asleep." The monkey frowned. "A bedtime story? I'm too old for a bedtime story." With a kind smile, the elephant said, "No one is too old for a bedtime story. Are you comfy on your branch?" The monkey nodded, but he wasn't convinced a story would help him fall asleep. Below him, the mountain gorilla leaned casually against the tree trunk and thought about which story would be best for the little monkey. One came easily to his mind. The gorilla began speaking in a low, deep voice. "Let me tell you the tale of the brave little monkey who travelled 1,000 miles over land and sea in search of hidden treasure. Despite his best efforts, the brave monkey never found the treasure, but he found something much more valuable." The gorilla's words intrigued the monkey. Perhaps he would like a bedtime story after all. The gorilla proceeded with his tale. He spoke about the brave monkey preparing for his quest, and how he had to board a 200-year-old ship which was bound for a mysterious land. With each word, the gorilla's voice grew more soothing and hypnotic. Like a warm blanket, the gorilla's words wrapped themselves around the monkey above him. And it wasn't long before the monkey drifted into a peaceful slumber which lasted all night. Even though the gorilla knew the monkey had fallen asleep, he kept going with his story because there was someone else who needed to rest. He could tell by the tired look on the wise elephant's face that she'd been busy helping others all day. And now someone needed to help her. With his voice as low as distant thunder, the gorilla continued his tale. He noticed the elephant yawning and slowly settling herself on the grass. By the time the gorilla had finished his story, the wise elephant of Sleepy Forest was fast asleep. Now it's time to begin Bao's Cuddly Dumplings by Susanna McLaughlin. In a cosy house made of bamboo, there lived a family of pandas. The littlest panda, though he wasn't quite so little anymore, was named Bao. Once just a little ball of black and white fluff, Bao was now growing up and becoming taller and rounder, but no less fluffy. Today was a big day for Bao. Every Sunday, he, his mum and his grandma would gather around the table and make dumplings, wrapping vegetables in dough and folding them into the perfect shape with a pinch. It was a family ritual and one that Bao loved more than anything. However, this Sunday, Bao's mum and grandma wouldn't be here. A travelling wool shop would be rolling into Sleepy Forest, towed by a sheep on a bicycle named Wally. Bao's mum and grandma would be the first there to pick the brightest and fluffiest yarn, and then they were sure to while away the afternoon knitting with the other crafty creatures of the forest. This was all well and good, but what about Dumpling Day? They couldn't miss Dumpling Day. Bao pouted for a minute or two that morning, unsure what to do with himself. His grandma chucked him under the chin and chuckled. "Why the long face, Bao?" she had asked. Bao had crossed his arms and furrowed his brow. "What's Dumpling Day without dumplings?" he had asked. His grandma feigned a puzzled look herself and said, "Who said there'll be no dumplings today? Your mother and I were looking forward to seeing what you created all on your own. You're old enough now, Bao, to be a trusted dumpling chef all on your own. We've taught you well over the years, and if anything goes terribly wrong, your dad will help." Bao's dad gave him a goofy grin from behind his newspaper. Bao's eyes glimmered, and he puffed his chest out a little. Could he really make the dumplings all by himself? Maybe, just maybe he could. Bao waved from the decking as his mum and grandma strolled off between the trees. He snapped a piece of bamboo from the nearby plants and chewed on it thoughtfully. If he was to be a real grown-up dumpling chef from now on, he would need a hat. A special white chef's hat. Bao headed to the laundry room and looked at the crisp white pillowcases still warm from the dryer. Maybe he could use one of those. He put one on his head and went to look in the mirror. It was almost like a chef hat, but it wouldn't stand upright. It fell down his back like long flowing hair. He practiced flipping his fake hair from left to right a couple of times and then took it off. Clean laundry was stacked in front of the washing machine. On the top of the pile was a pair of Bao's crisp white underpants. He put them on his head. They were perfectly starched and a brilliant white, and stood regally up from his head. Now that was a chef's hat. Bao looked at himself for a couple of seconds more, crossing his arms and raising one eyebrow after the other, before grinning and skipping his way into the kitchen. It was time to cook. First things first, Bao needed flour. He opened the pantry door. On the bottom shelf, between dried noodles, packets of pickled seaweed, and big sacks of rice, was a floppy bag of flour. Bao grabbed it with his paws and pulled. Nothing. This thing was heavy. Bao was about to call his dad when he realized he was old enough and strong enough to do it by himself. All he had to do was think strong. He imagined he was a strong, mighty ox lifting the sack above his head. Before he knew it, he was lightly dusted with flour and carrying the bag overhead towards the table. He put it down, and small, twisty clouds rose into the air. The flour got in his nose, and he sneezed, then giggled. Bao would use the flour to make the dough for the dumpling wrappers. He started by washing his paws, lathering up soapy suds in his furry hands. Then he dried them on a soft, fluffy tea towel and got to work. He took out his measure and scooped a big pile of flour. Into the bowl it went. Once more, he took a big scoop and let it avalanche into the bowl, creating a dusty white landscape that could be the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas. Next, he filled his water jug to the perfect level, sticking out his tongue in concentration. Then he put another splash of water for good luck and poured it all into the bowl, creating streams and rivers amongst his mini mountains. Next, Bao put in his paws and began to mix everything up. The flour and the water mixed to make a sticky, gloopy dough that coated his paws. He chuckled. Maybe the extra splash was too much. He added another sprinkling of flour and mixed until the dough felt just right. Now Bao covered the wooden surface with a sprinkling of flour and slapped the dough onto the worktop, just for fun. Now it was time to knead the dough. He folded and pulled the dough, pushing into it with his paws. He kneaded it for 5 minutes, then 10, then 15. Bao's paws were getting tired, but he wouldn't stop until it was the perfect texture. He gritted his teeth and continued to knead until the dough was a beautiful, perfect cream-coloured ball. Bao smiled at it triumphantly. It looked even better than usual. He lovingly placed his dough back in the bowl and covered it with a tea towel. He wished it sweet dreams as he set it aside to rest. Next, Bao turned his attention to the filling. He wandered over to the fridge and wondered what to use. Usually, they would follow his grandma's recipe. But today, he was in charge. He pulled out mushrooms of all sizes and shapes and a bunch of chives. He brought out a block of tofu that wriggled and jiggled on his plate, and a big frizzy cabbage. Perfect. First, Bao used his special bamboo knife to chop garlic, breathing in the delicious smell, and then minced a knobbly piece of ginger. Next, he chopped some bamboo shoots before turning his attention to the mushrooms. There were little round shiitake mushrooms and big frilly oyster mushrooms. There were teeny tiny enoki that looked like the mushrooms that fairies would eat, and little chestnut mushrooms with round caps. Bao chose a few of each and chopped them up teeny tiny. Next, he crumbled the tofu and sliced the cabbage into tiny ribbons. With all of his ingredients prepared, Bao turned to the wok. Just as he had done 1,000 times before with his grandma, he turned on the stove and put a splash of oil in the big round pan. He added his ingredients one by one and shook the pan to send them jumping and tumbling through the air, cooking beautifully as they danced. Next, he took his favourite sauces out of the cupboard and added a splash of this and a splosh of that, until it smelt delicious. So far, so good. Now for the mixture to cool. Bao sat at the counter and flicked through his dad's paper as he waited. Although he was old enough to make dumplings, Bao decided he wasn't old enough to read his dad's newspaper yet. He puzzled over an article about the best way to mow your lawn for a while, before giving up and flipping to the crosswords in the back. That was much more fun. Before long, it was time to wake his snoozing doe. Bao brought it back to his workspace and untucked it from the tea towel. He cooed, "Wakey, wakey," and flipped the bowl so the dough landed once more on the flowery tabletop. Next, Bao separated the dough into 12 balls and rolled them flat with his big rolling pin. He put a spoon of filling in each and brought the edges of the dough together, sealing each dumpling with an expert pinch. One of them tore, and he had to start again, but he thought that was okay. 11 out of 12 first time was a near-perfect score. Next, Bao put 4 dumplings into a bamboo steamer and another 4 in another basket on top. Then another 4 on top of that, and 4 in the very top. 4 times 4 made 12 steaming dumplings. Bao placed the tower carefully on top of a bubbling pan of water and let the steam twist and twirl its way up and around each dumpling, cooking them until they were soft and scrumptious. As the dumplings steamed, Bao sat back at the table and stewed over his crossword, nibbling his bamboo pencil as he thought. Before he knew it, the kitchen timer trilled, and Bao skipped over to the cooker to check on his dumplings. They would be ready now. Bao lifted the tower of baskets from the stove and carried them to the work surface. He lifted the lid off the very top basket to find nothing. Where were the dumplings? He could have sworn he put 4 in each basket. 4 times 4 makes 12, right? Just then, he heard a mysterious boing in the corner of the room. Bao spun around, but there was nothing there. No bunny or spring or anything else that boinged. He turned back to the basket and lifted off the top layer to look in the next basket. Phew! There were 4 perfect dumplings in the next basket, smiling up at him. Wait, smiling? Before Bao realized what he was seeing, the 4 dumplings rocketed and ricocheted out of the basket, boinging onto the work surface across the room. Their giggles reverberated around the room. Bao stood there with his wooden spoon in hand and his mouth open. Did his dumplings just smile at him? And move? Bao lifted up the next compartment to see in the next basket. 4 dumplings snoozed in the steam, snoring. Oh, thank goodness, Bao thought. These ones are asleep. He lifted them up to peek at the last layer, and as he did, the dumplings awoke from their slumber and ping-ponged off to join the others, boinging around the kitchen. Out popped the last 4 dumplings, and soon 12 dumplings were having the time of their lives bouncing around the panda's home. Bao got his grandma's recipe book out of the cupboard and wondered what he could have possibly done wrong. Maybe he used the wrong kind of flour, or didn't rest the dough long enough. Bao shook himself. There was no flower he knew that came to life. It was obviously some kind of wonderful miracle, and that was that. The panda put his paw on his chin and wondered how on earth to catch all of the bouncing dumplings. He chased them for a while, cooing, "Come back," and "Here, dumpling, dumpling," to no luck. They had boundless energy. How was he going to calm them down? Finally, Bao thought about his grandma and how she used to calm him down when he was little. She would sing him a little lullaby. Bao sat on the kitchen floor, closed his eyes, and began to sing improvised songs like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Dumpling and Rock-a-bye Dumpling. As he sang, the giggling and boinging began to subside. He heard little chuckles and little sighs as the dumplings began to move their attention to the singing panda. He kept his eyes closed and continued his songs. Once the kitchen was quiet around him, Bao opened his eyes. 12 little dumplings were beaming up at him from his lap. They huddled together and made exciting little coos, hopping around Bao's lap as if saying hello. Bao waggled his fingers at them. "Hello, little dumplings," he said. "Look at you. It looks like I am an unusual dumpling chef. I've never seen alive ones before." He pointed at the underpants on his head. "Maybe it's my magic chef's hat," he said. The dumplings chatted in high-pitched, quiet voices, and he could only hear a word here and there. But it seemed they liked the little panda, and the feeling was mutual. Bao welcomed the little dumplings to the world. They all sat there in the kitchen for a while, getting to know one another. As the dumplings jumped up and down in his lap, Bao decided he should make this day very special for them. It was their birthday, after all. They hadn't even seen the outside yet. Bao tapped his shoulders and encouraged the little dumplings to run up his arms and get comfy. Once they were all snuggled into his fur, Bao stood up and carried them out the door. He hopped down the porch stairs and nestled his feet into the grass. "This is Sleepy Forest," he told the dumplings. "These are trees, and this is grass, and that's a cloud in the sky." The dumplings oohed and ahed from his shoulders. Bao set off walking through the forest. The sun was shining and reflecting from the bamboo and palm trees around the panda's cabin. Birds tweeted overhead, and a warm breeze ruffled through his fur. The air smelt like pine needles and orange blossoms. Bao followed his favourite track into the forest and out into the clearings beyond, where bees buzzed and golden wheat swayed in the breeze. He plodded slowly up towards the top of the tallest hill, humming to himself as he went. Before long, the dumplings began to hum along with him. Then he began to sing, and they soon picked up the tune and sang along. Then they sang in rounds. The panda would sing a verse, then one by one the dumplings would join in until they were all singing at different times. Bao soon got lost, and they all stopped singing and giggled. Bao sang one last chorus, and the 12 dumplings each sang a different harmony, so they sounded like quite the choir. Or pop group. Bao would quite like to be a pop star. Soon they reached the top of the hill, where you could see the glimmer of the sea in the distance, and the forest stretched out below you, dotted with the cosy homes of the friendly animals who lived there. The dumplings hopped off Bao's shoulders, and Bao laid down into the soft grass. The dumplings settled around him and let out small sighs as they got comfy. "This is your new home," Bao told his 12 little friends. Bao watched the clouds drifting overhead as he chatted idly with his dumplings. He pointed out the clouds and what they looked like: sheep and stars, whales and crocodiles. The slow movement of the floating clouds and the soft grass soon made Bao drift off, snoring softly, and the dumplings followed soon after. Bao was eventually woken by a high-pitched noise, like the whee of a child going down a slide. He rose up puzzledly and looked for the source of the noise. Something was rolling down the hill. Was it a ball or a stone? No, it was one of his dumplings. As he watched, another dumpling jumped from its place on the grass and rolled and tumbled down the hill with a high-pitched whoop. One by one, the dumplings bounced and rolled down the hill, giggling and shouting as they went. Bao laughed as he watched them, holding his belly. The dumplings now gathered at the bottom of the hill, calling to the panda. Bao shrugged, rolled into a ball, and tumbled down the hill in a series of giggly somersaults. He landed in a heap at the bottom of the hill, and his dumpling friends climbed on his stomach, using it as a trampoline. Bao could not stop laughing. Once the giggles had subsided, Bao thought it was time to go home. The dumplings climbed back on his shoulders, and the happy panda began to stroll through the trees back to his bamboo home. He returned to the cozy cabin and called through to his dad to say hello, setting the dumplings down on the kitchen table. He looked to the kitchen, and his jaw dropped. What a mess! There was flour and crockery everywhere. A good chef always does his washing up. His mum and grandma would be back any moment, and he couldn't leave it looking like this. Bao squirted soap into the washing up bowl and turned on the hot tap, sending a torrent of warm water to make a sudsy, bubbly pool. As he turned round to clean the pots, he heard a plop, then another, then 10 more. He knew what that would be. He turned around with a smile on his face to see 12 dumplings splashing around in the bubbles, bobbing and giggling to themselves. He rolled his eyes. "Out you get," he said, "unless you want to help with the washing up." The dumplings all began to nod and call, "We do, we do, we do." And Bao laughed. He gave them a sponge and put the first pan into the soapy water. The dumplings scrubbed it clean until it was sparkling, and Bao replaced it with another. Once every pan, plate and bowl was clean, the dumplings jumped out, pulled cloths over the surfaces, and ferried ingredients back to their places. The kitchen was beautifully clean. At that moment, the door opened, and Bao's mum and grandma came into the kitchen, each wearing a newly knitted jumper, his mum's with a star on the belly, his grandma's with a flower. They carried baskets full of balls of yarn. The dumplings all scurried to hide behind the cookbooks. Bao gave them both a hug and welcomed them home. His dad came through from where he had been working in the living room, and the family sat around the table and caught up about their days. "How was Dumpling Day, Bao?" his mum asked him. Bao didn't need to answer. Before he could, 12 dumplings bounced onto the table, calling hellos in their little cooing voices. "Dumpling Day was good, thank you," Bao said casually. "My dumplings can move." "We can see that," his grandma replied. It looks like you poured so much love into your cooking that the dumplings came to life. You might just be the most talented dumpling chef I know." Bao's dad was poking one of the dumplings, who was giggling ticklishly. Another had hopped onto Mum's head and lay down in her tufty fur. Bao said, "It's all thanks to my chef hat," pulling his white underpants from the drawer and putting them on his head once more. The pandas laughed together. "Well, son," Bao's dad said, "looks like the family just got a little bigger." For dinner that night, Dad ordered pizza, which the 4 pandas ate cozied up by the fire. Soon after his last bite, Bao drifted off to sleep with a full belly and 12 new friends snoozing in a cuddly huddle on his lap. He dreamt of all the things he could show his new friends. They would swim in the sea, ride a dragon, visit the fairies. Tomorrow would be a good day. Tonight's bedtime story is The Slumberjack by Jane Thomas. In the centre of a tree-lined clearing in the village of Lower Starry Skies stands Willow Stump's home, a log cabin made by her grandfather's great-grandfather, the first of the famous Lower Starry Skies lumberjacks. The Stumps have lived here for hundreds of years and have passed their lumberjack skills from father to son, or, in this case, from father to daughter. Not only do they take down trees when needed, but they transform wood into all manner of beautiful things, their speciality being cabins just like this one. There's a porch that wraps its way all around the house, decorated with rocking chairs and endless strings of fairy lights. And there's a chimney at either end of the cabin, each of which has a little puff of white smoke coming out of it. Everything inside has been made by one stump or another, from the beds to the bookcases to the plates they use for dinner, and the bathtub that sits beneath the skylight so you can lean back and look up at the stars, surrounded by mounds of rainbow bubbles. So this is the life Willow Stump was born into, one where the outside is quite literally brought inside, and where she understands the rhythms and ways of nature and trees, the birds and the bushes, the deer that stand and watch her, and the squirrels that dance through swaying branches. And you might expect that this girl in the jeans and the checked shirt would grow up to do exactly as her father has done. But she has a secret that nobody knows, not even those in her family. Ever since she was born, Willow knew there was something different about her. It was only one day when she was old enough to read that she happened to take down the biggest, dustiest, heaviest book in the little library in their cabin. One that of course had a ladder that swung around on rails so you could reach even the books on the highest shelves with ease. And inside that book, she found tales of pixies and fairies, of leprechauns and will-o'-the-wisps. And somewhere in there was a page with a corner folded down, and pictured on that page was something called a slumberjack. As Willow read the description and looked at the image, she knew she was finding out all about herself. A slumberjack, she read, was a special, unusual kind of lumberjack. You see, cutting down trees too much and using all the wood for humans, if unchecked, could take habitats away from the animals who need them. So, we need slumberjacks to maintain the balance. That's why slumberjacks often disappear to remote wild places and make sure the forests are thriving. They help the animals create the coziest homes high up in the trees, going to almost impossible lengths to make sure that every bush baby and koala and squirrel and sloth could fall asleep in the coziest of nests and dens and hidey holes. Willow looked at the picture and smiled, seeing herself on the page. It was a boy in the picture, but he had the same face as Willow and the same eyes, one blue and one green. His hair was the same rusty red as hers, and she recognized something about the way he stood, his hands deep in his pockets, his shoulders relaxed, his happy smile. That was very much her. In that moment, she found herself and understood her calling in life. Now, it's all very well finding out that you are supposed to be a slumberjack and your purpose is to disappear to remote places, but remote places are, well, remote. Animals tend to live away from humans in our hustle and bustle. It was when Willow was 10 years old that she realized that Aunt Tilly, the mysterious, wise lady of the village, who everyone called their auntie, whether they were actually related or not, certainly had a lot of secrets hidden behind her smile, and might be able to help her fulfill her slumberjack destiny. It was a difficult topic to bring up one afternoon over tea. They were sitting in Aunt Tilly's garden on a picnic rug, Willow stringing daisies together to make a chain, when she suddenly put down the flowers, took a deep breath, and bravely announced, "I think I'm not supposed to be a regular lumberjack like my family, making things for humans. I think I'm supposed to be a slumberjack." She blurted it out all of a sudden, and then turned bright red and went back to her daisies. "But of course you are, dear," said Aunt Tilly, quite unfazed by the announcement. "I knew that the moment you were born." Willow dropped the daisies, taken quite by surprise for a moment, and then realizing in the next that, of course, Aunt Tilly of all people would know such a thing. "I need a place to do my work," she said, leaving the hint hanging in the air, hoping Aunt Tilly would help her out. Aunt Tilly set down her teacup on its saucer and looked casually off into the distance. "Rumour has it," she said after a pause, "that if one were to go through the little gate at the end of the lane, and if one were to believe very much in what one might find, that one could discover a place called Sleepy Forest." She picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then she smiled across at Willow. "And I think Sleepy Forest is just the place for a slumberjack to do their work. I'll leave that with you, dear." And then Aunt Tilly changed the subject and started talking about the time she saw a tiger in India and always wished she had invited it to tea. In her next story, Tilly was riding on the back of a whale as it slipped through the waters to Sri Lanka, and Willow became so distracted by talk of the tea plantations that for a few days she quite forgot everything Aunt Tilly had said about Sleepy Forest. But, of course, she had remembered, one night at 2 a.m. when she'd suddenly woken with a start and gasped. Willow had looked out of the window and seen a white owl swooping by, heading over the forest that Aunt Tilly had described. And, from then on, every week Willow would find a way to slip through the little gate at the end of the lane and find her way into the heart of Sleepy Forest. And tonight, she will disappear through that same little gate, and she will meet with a bush baby called Daisy, who is going to be getting a new little sister very, very soon, to build a new bedroom for their nest high in the trees. But first, she has to gather supplies. Willow Stump walks down the hill from upper starry skies to lower starry skies. She has her hands in her jeans pockets as she walks, and the sleeves of her red and black checked shirt are rolled up. It's a warm evening, and she's whistling softly as she goes, pausing to say hello to anyone she passes. She passes by neither up nor down, and then comes to where there's a wool, there's a way. Mrs. Willingworth is waiting for Willow, and her fluff ball of a cat is also there on the counter, his tail waving slowly to and fro as he sits and watches the world go by outside the window. Mrs. Willingworth smiles at Willow and hands over a basket of scraps of material she's gathered together over the last week, the leftover pieces from the curtains and clothes, tea towels and tablecloths she's made for people. Willow takes a quick peek inside and smiles to see the bundle of polka dots and flowered fabrics, stripes and checks, some velvet, some silk, some soft brushed cotton, and lengths of pale blue wool curled neatly around. Willow passes by Rise and Chime, waving to Mr. Timelove, who appears to be having a meeting with a gathering of cuckoos and mice, and then wanders past the church and the school, turning at the crossroads just in time to see Uma closing the doors of the Dimpled Dumpling. Past Mr. Featherman's garden she goes, where all the gnomes are poised in position, fishing rods reaching out over ponds, wheelbarrows filled with feathers, waiting for darkness to descend so they can head out into the world and gather up good luck charms. Outside Aunt Tilly's house, Mellow Yellow the van seems to sparkle a smile across to Willow. And then, just past the cottage, where the roses seem to bloom the whole year round, Willow takes a small path that hardly anyone ever notices. It winds its way between high hedgerows, the scent of honeysuckle filling the air, and she walks along, still whistling softly, swinging the basket of scraps from Mrs. Willingworth, until she comes to a clearing. Willow believes that nobody in her family knows she is a slumberjack. She believes she's kept this very much hidden, and that she can sneak out under cover of darkness with none of them noticing. But of course they know. They all know. They knew it from the moment she opened her eyes and they saw one was green and the other blue, and her hair was the colour of the setting sun. But it is better for everyone to work out who they are in life, rather than their family tell them. And so they had kept quiet and waited for Willow to figure it out for herself. They knew the day the biggest, dustiest, heaviest book in the library had been moved, for the little mouse who lived there had come to tell them. And they knew Willow had found the page with the Slumberjack's picture, because one of her long flame-red hairs was resting in the pages of the book. But they never said a word. So later that night, as Willow slips out of the house with her basket, believing that everyone thinks she's fast asleep in her bed, she holds her breath as she tiptoes past her grandfather in the rocking chair on the porch, who is busy pretending to be very, very asleep. She stops for a moment when she steps on a twig that snaps. the sound suddenly seeming so loud in the absolute quiet of the night. But no lights turn on, and the rocking chair doesn't move, and she believes that once more she's leaving for her mission with nobody knowing. Willow goes down the path that winds its way between the high hedgerows and emerges onto the little lane. She sees lights twinkling in Aunt Tilly's house and imagines the tiny old lady sitting with a book late into the night, not knowing that she too keeps an eye out for the little Slumberjack on the night she heads into Sleepy Forest. The gate creaks a little, and Willow frowns, reminding herself to bring a can of oil next time. And then it is closed, and Willow is heading down the path that rises to the left and dances to the right, and heads across a little bridge over a stream made silver in the moonlight. And at the meeting place, beneath the old oak tree, there is Daisy, the bush baby, waiting patiently for Willow to arrive. They greet each other with hushed voices, not wanting to wake any of the folk who are busy in their dreams in Sleepy Forest, and head hand in hand towards the pine tree where Daisy and her family live. It's an easy tree for Willow to climb, one with big, strong branches that reach out from the trunk just a few inches apart from each other. So it's as easy as climbing the ladder in the library at home for her to go high, high to the top of the tree. And there is the bush baby's home, one that Willow made a few years before. It's almost perfectly round, made from thin strips of wood that Willow cut and shaped and bent. One of the finest little homes she's built. There is a large round hole that serves as a door, and smaller round holes that act as windows. And from the top, Willow notes with a smile is a little puff of white smoke coming from the chimney. Curtains are drawn at all the windows and across the door, and Daisy disappears inside to wake her father. He comes to the doorway and smiles out at Willow, explaining that with the little one on the way, they think it's time for an extra room, and does she think she can manage that? Willow takes out her sketch pad and shows her design, which shows a separate, completely round home, smaller than the first, attached to the main one underneath. It will hang on slender ropes, she shows, looking for all the world like a hot air balloon with a basket beneath. So the new bush baby can be rocked to sleep without disturbing the whole house. Daisy then shows her design for the inside, with a pattern of ferns across the nursery wall, and a rocking chair for the mother, and a rocking horse for the baby when she's old enough, and a little spiral staircase that links the two homes together. The design is beautiful, more than the bush babies could have dreamed, and Willow sets to work. Yes, there, high in the tree. She's as comfortable in the tree as you or I might be on the ground. She sets up her little workshop, hanging her tools on twigs. She walks along the branches until she finds the perfect pieces to cut and shape and bend in her hands, weaving everything together until it creates the shape she's after. She takes Mrs. Wollingworth's material from her basket, choosing a soft pink velvet piece for the bed, and hanging poppy-covered pieces over the windows. She adds matching cushions to the rocking chair she's made, and weaves the little lengths of wool together to make the softest rug to be placed on the floor. And then Willow oh so carefully makes the hole needed in the original home so she can add her spiral staircase made of woven reeds, linking the two creations together. The final touch, once everything is a single home, is to turn on the light in the new home. A soft glow can be seen behind the poppy curtains, and Willow imagines Daisy's mother sitting in the rocking chair with her new baby in her arms, her foot pushing her back and forth, as she sings a lullaby. The night isn't finished yet for Willow, for a new family of koalas has moved into Sleepy Forest, and she's busy making them their perfect home. They showed her pictures of their old cottage back where they used to live, and Willow is determined to make an almost perfect copy of this, so it's taking time. This will be her 5th night working on the home for them. Meanwhile, the koalas are having a lovely time camping out beneath the stars. 4 little orange tents, all pointed towards a fire pit in the middle, where they sit together in the evenings and roast marshmallows on the ends of sticks. By the time Willow gets there tonight, the baby koalas are tucked up in their sleeping bags and fast asleep. But Mr. and Mrs. Pebbles are waiting for their Slumberjack to appear, blankets drawn over their knees and telescope in hand as they look up at the Milky Way. Willow stays with them a while before climbing up the great oak tree they've chosen as their home, reaching from branch to branch with ease as she approaches the cottage she's creating. Mrs. Pebbles is a great sewer, and she is making patchwork quilts for her new home. So Willow leaves the basket of scraps with her at the base of the tree. Mr. Pebbles continues his journey around the Milky Way, while Mrs. Pebbles claps her paws in delight at the beautiful pieces she has to choose from tonight, starting with a square of red on white striped material to add to her quilt. The cottage is one of the coziest Willow has created yet, with deep window seats for daytime dreaming and hammocks made from the thread of silkworms. Tonight, she's adding the softest moss as carpet, deep and thick and green and warm. And on one of the walls, she's painting the words of a poem she found. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, she paints slowly and carefully, her face screwed up in concentration. How I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. When the final curtain is added to the final window and the last pillow placed inside the last hammock, Willow climbs down the tree and beckons for Mrs. Pebbles to come and take a look. The koala stands with her hands clasped in the doorway, looking in at her new home, taking in all the touches Willow has included: the stand for the telescope, the shelf for the books, the copper kettle on a stove in the corner. For a moment, she wants to go and wake her children right away so they can see their new home too, but no. She will leave them asleep in their tents for one last night, and then they will move up the old oak into their cottage. Willow heads slowly home, taking her time on the walk through Sleepy Forest. It is a magical place where fireflies dance and glowworms glow, where gnomes dab luck onto fallen acorns and search through fields for four-leaf clovers, where animals from all over the world live side by side, happy and safe and free. She loves being in the forest, feeling the magic of the place wash over her. But then her eyes remind her how very tired she is. So she heads over the little bridge and along the path that winds to the left and the right. She goes through the gate and barely notices that this time it doesn't creak, barely stopping to wonder who might have come down behind her and poured a little oil onto the hinges. She reaches the lane and looks up to see Aunt Tilly's light still on, and smiles as she imagines what a very good book it must be that Aunt Tilly is reading. And then she turns up the footpath that hardly anyone notices, and goes up the path that winds this way and that with the high hedgerows on either side. And there, in the clearing, is the log cabin that her grandfather's great-grandfather built, the one with the porch that wraps itself all around, and the rocking chair where her grandfather still sleeps, one foot up on the railing, a hat tipped over his eyes. Willow tiptoes past him and into the cabin, taking the softest steps she can as she heads up the stairs and towards her room. Her bed looks so warm and cozy, and her mother has left her nightclothes neatly folded on the pillow. Willow takes off her jeans and checked shirt, leaving them in a pile on the floor that she will sort out tomorrow. Climbing into her soft pajamas and snuggling down beneath the blankets. She turns this way and that, remembering she hasn't closed the curtains. From outside, the full moon seems to wink at her before disappearing behind a cloud, and there the room is dark, with just a few twinkling stars 1,000 years away. Willow thinks of the bush babies tucked away in their perfect round ball of a home, and the cottage waiting for the koalas who are wrapped up in their sleeping bags in their little orange tents around the campfire, and Mrs. Pebbles sitting and sewing the final squares onto her patchwork quilt. And the Slumberjack sighs happily as she falls asleep, imagining looking through a telescope at the silver sweep of the Milky Way and seeing a single star up above the world, so high, like a diamond in the sky.